And three. So, hello everyone once again, and welcome to another edition of our International English Online meetings. This morning we have five great professionals from Paraguay who belong to PARATESOL. So, welcome Rocio, Carol, Cynthia, and Remigio. Am I missing anyone?
Maura.
And Maura, sorry. So welcome and thank you for sharing part of your time on a Sunday morning. And as usual, let me share my screen so we can see what we will be doing during this presentation. So you are the first group of teachers who will be present during our logo presentation. This is our beautiful logo presentation. Here you can see some of the people and World Educators Community and the book that represents uh, always learning, and this is what we want to get. So today is November the 16th, and this is our 139th International English Online meeting. If you want to watch our past webinars, you can find them in the YouTube channel. If you want to contact me, this is my Facebook account. And always thank you, always thanks to Denis Montaño from Ecuador, who and Universidad Yachay Tech, who allows us to use their Zoom account, and also to Grazzia Mendoza, who contacted you, and without her help, I wouldn't have met you. Okay, so who are our upcoming guest speakers in the rest of the year? Well, on December the 7th, we will have Kathy Ramirez, Adriana Sanchez, and Claudia Maria Uribe from Asocopi, Colombia. And then our last webinar this year will have Gracia Mendoza from Honduras, Isabel Tapja from Peru, Rana Bilal from England, Mary Scholl from Costa Rica, USA, and Raj Gill from Canada. We will be talking about, well, we will be reflecting on expressing our deepest gratitude to life. So who are our speakers today? Well, Cynthia, Carolina, Rocio, Maura, and Remigio. Well, a little bit about Cynthia is an English language teacher and trainer at the Instituto de Formación Docente Paraguayo Americano and an adjunct professor of pedagogy at the Instituto Superior de Lenguas, Universidad Nacional de Asunción. She will be talking about engage, study, activate with adult learners. Then Rocio Masoleni, she holds a bachelor's degree in English from the Instituto Superior de Lenguas, Universidad Nacional de Asunción in Paraguay, a master's degree in applied linguistics from the Universidad Católica Nuestra Señora de la Asunción, and a master's in education and neuropsychology from the Universidad de La Rioja in Spain. She will be talking about incorporating inclusive education practices in ELT. Then our good friend Carol Ortiz and Matthew Faki. She holds a bachelor's degree in English from the Instituto Superior de Lenguas, Universidad Nacional de Asunción, and a master's in education from the University of Alabama. She has taught for over 20 years in the field of English language teaching. She's the academic director at the Stale Rufinelli de Ortiz English Institute and also teaches pedagogy at the ISL. She'll be talking about using theater to teach English. Then Maura Judith Zalimben Recalde, she's a professor in the English degree program at the Instituto Superior de Lenguas, Universidad Nacional de Asunción, Paraguay. Maura holds a bachelor's degree in English from ISL and a master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other language from the University of Sydney, Australia. And she'll be talking about empowering adults for autonomous learning. And finally, the only man in this group, yeah, Remigio de Díaz Benítez. He's the head of the Language Education Department at Paraguay's Instituto Nacional de Educación Superior. Remigio has been a university professor since 2008 and has taught linguistic, didactics, pedagogy, research methodology, and theories of education at the INAES, Universidad Nacional de Itapúa, and Universidad Evangélica del Paraguay. He will be talking about teaching English in different contexts. So thank you so much, dear friends and colleagues from PARATESOL, and you may start now. I guess the first one to start will be Cynthia, right?
Yes, that's
So
right.
you
Thank
may
you very
start,
much,
dear.
Andy.
Thank you once again.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I'm going to begin sharing my presentation. And to give you a brief background of why Ignacio and I chose this topic, we uh, we have worked at the Paraguayan American Binational Center for many years, and there the main approach that we have to planning classes is the PPP, presentation, practice, production. So after using it for a long time, um, well, we started wondering if there was something else beyond that, and we found out about the Engage, Study, Activate. That it has similar elements, but they can be used in a different way. So, having given that background, let's begin with my presentation. So this is part of the book Teaching English in Global Contexts. It's in the chapter number 37 in Methods and Approaches. This is a book that was edited by dear professors Valentina Canessa and Susan Spezzini, and well, we hold this book very dearly too. Um, so we know that as teachers, uh, planning and preparing our class is like the best part to think what can happen in the class and how we can create learning opportunities. Um, Now, as most teachers anywhere, English language teachers anywhere in the world do, lessons are organized in usually three parts. We present the class, we practice, and then we do something. Students need to do something with what they have just practiced. Um, and we know very well that you know, if our guidance is good, if the activities that we put in our plan and then that we execute are good, are the correct ones according to our students' needs and also to what we are observing in what is going on within each class. Uh, we know that our students' motivation towards learning English will increase. Um, Now, in Engage, Study, Activate, the stages can be rearranged according to what we see that we need in our class. And this is the most interesting part. I mean, the part that we found the most interesting, the possibility to rearrange to include new stages in our class, and they are engage, study, and activate. Um, just a second. Now, to give you a little bit of background about the engage, study, activate approach, we know that Krashen emphasized that children acquire a second language without conscious effort, and that is what we need to recreate in our classes. Now, because we decided to focus on adults, we know that uh, we have life experiences that uh, somehow allow us to replicate just partially because we have too many things going on in our head. On the other hand, yes, since we are more aware of what we're doing, uh, it might be easier. But again, um, we need to know our students' needs. As educators, we all know after a while what each of our students need, and and we can look for specific ways to motivate or to help motivate all of them. As I mentioned before, presentation, practice, production might look similar, but Engage, Study, Activate has the advantage of adaptability. And one important thing to mention is that each stage should occur at least once. Um, now, of course, the first thing that we should do is planning and preparing our classes because, well, without preparation, we know that it's difficult that our classes work well. It's important that we address the different language levels that we have within one group of students, because even if they are at the same level, we know that uh, some of them might be at the lower portion of that level, and some others at the highest one. And also, we need to consider the multiple intelligences that we all have as well. Um, the activities that we use should always help students to think and use the target language, of course, from the beginning to the end. Now, this is an example of some of the ways in which we can put together the engage, study, and activate um, stages. So the very first one that you can see is the straight one. So we have engage stage, study stage, and an activate stage. Then we have another one called the boomerang, in which we can engage students, then activate, and then study. Or we can also have a patchwork like engage, activate, study, and activate. Now, why we are doing this? Well, for example, in the patchwork, let's say that we have engaged students, we have presented something and we have shown something, and then we study, we do some activities uh, to put that into practice, and we notice that we need to do a little bit more so that when they complete those activities, even with our help, they need a bit more. So we do another engage stage, and then we activate, then we let students produce. Then we check again with another study phase, and then we activate again. And with that, we make sure that um, learning is actually occurring. Now, as you have probably guessed, the engage stage is for students to feel connected with the lesson. Um, this is the part where we use visuals, tales, some mini debate, some miming, some acting, and of course, asking questions. Now, during the study stage, here is where we put a strong emphasis on language development. Here we use text, conversations, gap filling, crossword puzzles, where students can work with our help. And then in the activate stage, is where we have our students speaking English as openly and communicatively as possible. And this is the part where we do pair and group conversations, role plays, narrative creations, these type of activities. If you have any questions, just let us know in the chat, and well, I do my best to reply.
Thank you,
Now,
Cynthia.
yes. Um, well, we put together a sample lesson plan with the straight engage, study, activate um, uh, format. We thought of a beginner level and a class for 50 minutes. And the topic is free time activities. Um, and the language focus is vocabulary for free time activities. That includes adverbs of frequency. And it has, as I mentioned, just the three stages in the straight order: engage, study, activate. So of course we need to greet our students with a smile, ask them how they are. Nowadays, this is exactly what we wrote in the book chapter. Nowadays, we also use in every single class, and we use a mood checker, a an image with different numbers, and students can tell us how they feel, and that has created a difference. And we notice that students look forward to that part of the class. I mean, sometimes after a year, the students have been in my class, they ask me, "Are you still using the mood checkers?" Yes, I'm still using them. Um, so anything that works for you and that you see that works with your students. Then show students images about free time activities and ask them, what are these activities? And of course, there will always be students that are going to name some that they know. And then, of course, we model the words and ask students to repeat. Um, and then for the study stage, first, we're gonna have students listen to a conversation about free time activities, and we play the audio once. Then we ask students to identify activities they recognize. That, of course, we introduced in the engage stage. Then we use a chart with different activities and also the frequency adverbs. We give them this chart with all these elements, and we have students take turns to read the list, like every single item, and we clarify questions as necessary. And then we explain the adverbs, never, sometimes, often, usually, and always. We show them how to use these adverbs to answer the question, how often do you visit your friends? I never visit my friends. Um, so and then we practice, but with the audio. Um, we have students identify how often the people in the audio do each of those activities. And then afterwards, each student compares their responses on the chart with those on their classmates' chart. And then we share the conversation script so that students can check their own work. And then, I mean, when we just describe this, it's very short, but we know that in a class, this takes way more time. Um, so after that, we get to the activate stage. And here we introduce also something that we know that all of our students are familiar with. Uh, Even if we have a like senior students, like if they are 65 and above, they know about TikTok because they probably have granddaughters and grandsons. So everyone is familiar with TikTok. So in this part, uh, ask our students to play a conversation between a TikToker, that one of those that interviews people on the streets and then publishes those interviews, and someone on the street. So the TikToker interviews people and wants to know what people do in their free time and how often they do it. For these, they already have the questions from the chart that they used before for the previous stage. And we give them time to do it. Of course, we need to monitor this activity as usual. And it's important that students switch roles. We know this very well, so everyone can practice being the interviewer or also the person on the street. Um, and then after a while, uh, we uh, we ask them to change partners so they can practice again with other classmates. Um, and yes, once again, it's important to always monitor, to listen to the language being produced by students, because if we notice a pattern in inconsistencies regarding what you you showed in the engaged stage, you practiced in the study part, then you can go back to either a study stage after the activate stage, or you can go back to an engaged stage and then reactivate with something else to make sure that everyone has learned. And so because students had practiced with different students, uh, well, after it's over, you can ask them what their favorite answer was. So this is a sample we wrote for this chapter. Um, oh, thank you, Mary. Now I see your comment. And when we are dealing with adult learners, we need to remember that we need a reason to learn a new language, and we know that well through the andragogy principles that well those reasons can be anything from getting a new job, getting a raise, just for the sake of it, anything, but we need a reason basically, and we need to know why. That's why when we use activities that are uh, related to the real world, we are showing them, oh, this is how we use what we are doing in class. It's not just that we do it just because, but people actually do this and use this. So that creates even more motivation for them. Um, Something very important to remember is that Engage, Study, Activate acknowledges that each student learns in a different way. That's why we use different ways to show the information, to give away the information. And also, just by thinking at the name, I believe that it's very easy to visualize what you need to do in each stage. In the engage, you need to catch students' attention. Study, well, you need to do something more boring, but not boring because we have ways to do it in a more fun way, like with filling the gaps or crosswords. And then in the activate, well, we need to not only make students active, but also we need to use what we have done in the engage and then in the study stages. And as I mentioned before, well, when we see that there's a gap in what students have just been doing, we can implement an engaged stage or a study stage as necessary. Um, okay, so well, these questions are in the book. I don't know um, if you think that engage, study, activate is more effective than presentation, practice, and production. I don't know if you um, have thought about that while I was presenting, and would you use it?
Sure, I would. I was thinking about how old the learners you are working with are when you say that adult learners, how old they are.
Oh, it depends. Because they usually are starting at, let's say, 2021 up to 60, 65. Uh,
Okay,
and they are mixed. I mean, it's not like one class full of 65 years old,
I would
but
love to see a class with students from 60, 55. That must be
that,
awesome.
there's always at least one or two in each class, and I think that their presence there enriches also the younger generation's experience, learning experience, because the more you have been alive, the more things you know. I mean, the more things that you have learned on your own or with experience. So I think it is an enriching experience.
All right, thanks.
Um, Now, these are just other parts that are also in the book chapter. Now, these book chapters are written in a way that make you think, and also that if a professor or a teacher of a specific course wants to use this, they can use it. They can adapt it a bit if necessary, and then they can use it so that their students also use it as a guide. So for instance, one activity that we put there is analyze a lesson you enjoyed as a student and see if you can match the stages. And whenever this is done, students actually can notice that, wow, yes, those stages were there. I just didn't know what they were. And the fact that they become aware of that, it's priceless, because that is learning that no one can take away from them. Also, in the book chapter, we include the different links about engage, study, activate, and how you can I mean, where you can get more ideas and see it more in action too. And well, this is just I'm just sharing what we the way the book is formatted. And well, there's also of course references if you want to read more extensively about it. And well, I this is the end of my part of the presentation. I don't know if you have any questions or any comments that you would like to make. If you want to download the book, I put the QR code there. It's free. It's on Google Books, and you can download it as a PDF, and you can use it. It's under a Creative Commons license.
Yeah, it's 686 pages.
Yes, yes. And actually, Grazzia Mendoza also has written a couple of chapters for that book. This
Well,
was a huge collaboration. Like professors, I mean teachers from all over wrote these chapters. They are very, very hands-on, and I think they are useful for us.
yeah, thank you, dear Cynthia. I guess we will keep the questions for the end of the presentations. Otherwise, it will take uh, maybe too long, and we all have to do the cooking, the washing, and everything
Well,
else.
here it's midday already.
Yeah.
Someone
Oh,
else
yeah,
is
yeah,
doing the
yeah.
cooking.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much, and we'll be back to
Thank you.
you. Now is Rocio's turn. Rocio, go on. You are muted, Rocio. All right. Now it's okay.
Um, Let me share.
Please,
Oh, okay.
people who are
So,
present here, please take notes of your questions or comments to make at the end of the presentations. Thank you so much.
okay. So let me start. I apologize, first of all, because of my voice, since my voice is not coming out the way it should. And I'm with a flu, so I
Don't worry, Rocio.
okay. So, what will I do? My plan is to talk about a part of a chapter of the book, teaching English in global context, language learners and learning. So this is also one of the chapters from the book that Cynthia was mentioning. And I'm going to talk about inclusive education because my chapter was inclusive education. And I'm also a past president of PARATESOL. I'm a professor and coordinator at ISL. I've been working for a long time on inclusive education, especially when it comes to teaching foreign languages or a second language to children with. In this case, I will focus more on learning difficulties, because as you know, inclusive education can be a lot more than just learning difficulties. Okay, so if I will try to summarize the chapter, and probably there are lots of information that we want to ask, and that is a good thing, to stay with some curiosity and to think about how can I know more. Okay, this is something that we find that is real, that we find every day, that we have mixed ability classes. We have classes with students that have diverse learning needs, okay? And the idea is to explore in these few minutes to explore how learning difficulties intersect with second language acquisition, try to understand inclusive teaching and assessment strategies that we use for inclusive teaching, and try to equip educators to adapt their lessons to the diverse needs of students, okay? So what are learning difficulties? I chose to use a definition by the manual DSM-5, okay? Now, there are two approaches, I can say. The one that is favored in the US and or in the North, and the one in this part of the continent, and the European. So they are similar, but they have a bit of a different approach, okay? So learning difficulties. And this is defined as neurodevelopmental disorders affecting specific academic skills. So basically, what we're going to, what we need to understand, that this is not linked to intelligence, to the capacity to learn. It's only that our brains are wired differently. We're all different. We're all good at certain things and not so good at other things. And also children or students with learning difficulties, they learn differently, okay, to what the majority, the strategies the majority uses, okay? So, and the idea is that as teachers, what we need to do is to observe our students, observe our classes, observe the behaviors, and not the diagnosis. We need to remember that we are there to work with the specialists, with the psychologists, with a team of specialists, okay? So students with learning difficulties, something that we need to remember is that students with learning difficulties can acquire second language with the right support. And that is what we need to provide them, okay? And early observation and inclusive planning are key. So how do I do that if I have a lot of students in my class? So we will explore that briefly. And as I said, teamwork with psychologists and specialists enhance outcomes, and how to approach the different students, the different individuals that you have in your class. Oops. Oh, something up. Oops. Okay, something happened. Let me see. So, and common learning difficulties in the language classroom. And we usually find dyslexia. Okay, there are more. That's the difficulty with phonemic awareness, the reading and the spelling. Okay, and some others, dysgraphia, HDAD, ASD, OCD, dyscalculia. So learning, the thing is that learning difficulties often co-occur and require nuanced understanding. If a child or a student may have more than one learning difficulty, okay? And there are certain learning difficulties that we can approach in a similar way, and there are certain learning difficulties that we need to take into consideration certain aspects of our teaching. Sometimes this is also confused with acquiring a language. Some learning difficulties are not such, okay? So when we are acquiring a second language, some of the observed behaviors can be similar, and then at some point we are able to make a difference. But basically, following the European approach, we focus on prevention, okay? We work because probably some of these learning difficulties, we are not specialists, won't diagnose for a fact until they are 9 years or 10 years, and they start their schooling a lot earlier, okay? So something important for us teachers to observe and to work on strategies that will cater for most students, okay? So one way is to apply multisensory methods, visual movements, games, okay? Especially when they are developing reading and writing. Sometimes we need to focus even on something as basic as PE, developing the gross motor skills, developing so they can later on develop their brains and they are ready for reading and writing. As you know, our brains were not originally developed or thought to develop reading and writing. Later on, we develop that, and that changes our brain, okay? So we can apply cooperative learning activities, peer tutoring. Sometimes it depends on the learning disability. If we have students from the autism spectrum, we have to be careful, okay, with the methods and approaches we apply, and also how we arrange our classes. Probably a lot of visual stimulus is not a good idea for those students, and cooperative learning is something acquired that will take them time. The idea is to equip the students with strategies and so to live in the world, in the real world, okay? But the sooner we start, we are going to equip. It's not that you can grow out of them, but you can learn to live, and there are advantages of learning in different ways, okay? So, and sometimes we have to differentiate students and use the L1 strategically if needed, depending on the learning difficulty, okay? And so to summarize, what are some of the approaches that we need to adapt for when we are assessing the students? First of all, we are talking about in a class students that learn in a different way that can actually, with minor changes, can also learn with the same curricula, just a different approach, a different way of approaching the knowledge, and what are you going to, how are you going to, if I may correct myself, how are you going to know what, or how can they show what they know? Okay, so sometimes you need to adjust or modify assessment depending on their learning difficulties, and probably authentic assessment, alternative assessment are good ideas, okay? So we collect data in different ways, okay? Sometimes by showing and telling, not just the traditional ways. Sometimes you need to assess skills separately when needed, because they learned in different ways, and probably the skills are developed in different stages, okay? And always collaborate with the professionals so they can guide you better, okay? So the idea is, how can you adapt your teaching for inclusion? And that is a question we need to ask ourselves. It's not reinventing the wheel. With what we have, how can we modify so that we present the information in various ways? We demand some feedback in various ways as well, okay? And the idea is to explore some sites that will help us to really know more, and also that will help us to see what we need to focus on, what we need. This chapter is like the beginning step, okay? That will probably guide you towards probably going deeper into the topic, okay? So as I said, inclusion, we're focusing on this chapter on learning difficulties, but that is not the only thing considering inclusion. Also, the students that you need to cater for all the students in your class with different cultures, the students that can that probably can produce more, okay? You need to provide. So we as teachers need to be very creative, and usually adapt our own materials to diverse needs, okay? So, and some of the sources that I use when I wrote the article are in the PowerPoint, but also you can read the article, and that is in the book that was shared in the chat by Carol, okay? And probably this is, as I said, this is just the starting point that we should have. And everyone can learn a language, but we all learn in diverse ways. We are all different, and we need to celebrate that difference and also provide for that difference. Okay, so thank you for listening, for putting up with my voice that will disappear at moments. Okay.
No, thank you, dear Rocio, for the big effort you've done to present such interesting topic. I don't know if Mary or anybody else here, Mary, Remigio, Carol, Claudia, Cynthia, Mercilinda from Guatemala, Carla, or Maura, or Valentina, or Vale have a question about this topic. Mary, maybe? Sorry, Mary's eating. My grandson, Rocio, has autism. He's 6 years old. He's not verbal yet. And I was thinking about the way they learn English because my partner, she teaches little children, and in her class, she's got students with autism, and she has told me that they are really fast learners. They do not produce as quick as they do in English. Is that
Mhm.
true?
It depends on the approach, and basically is if you provide the best approach they can
Yeah.
learn.
So,
Probably sometimes depending on the spectrum of autism, if they will develop comprehension first, and later on they will develop their speaking, but they understand. So probably they will speak later, but it's not because they don't, because it's not because of lack of possibility of speaking. It's only that we need to give some time, and probably it's not a good idea to start with cooperative learning.
all right.
And yeah,
I get
with
it.
that. Mhm.
Thank you. Mary, you got a question, a comment?
Yeah,
Sorry
just
that I
really
interrupted your eating.
okay. I was sorry that I was in a little different world in my mind. But I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I think one thing that your work is doing that is really important is helping people, helping teachers see that it's not just about what we're teaching. It's really about how students learn.
Mhm. Yeah.
And but I don't think I grew up with that awareness.
Mhm.
I didn't grow up with that kind of model. And so it takes an opening of the mind and an opening of the heart to sort of say, oh, wait a minute, I might not be teaching in the way that I thought I was going to be teaching, but it's still focused on the students learning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate that. And it takes a lot for a teacher to adopt that. And I think about how do our universities need to change how they work with teacher development, pre-service education
Yeah.
in a way that will make it easier for teachers to become inclusive.
Mhm. Yes,
Right.
because that is exactly right. It's a lot to ask the teacher if you do not provide training for the teacher on
Right.
that area, so that they want to, a lot of them, they do want to do something about it, but they need some training just to think, how can I deal with this in a normal class? I have a lot of students with different needs.
Well, the thing too, Rocio, which I think is interesting, and I don't know how to really address it without sounding maybe too critical,
Mhm.
but I think the university system needs to change how it teaches.
Yeah.
Because the way, like if I go into a university class, and I'm not sure how it is in Paraguay,
Mhm.
but in typical universities where you go in and the teacher usually stands at the front of the room and just talks and lectures, that doesn't model, and it doesn't reach all the students that are in the room,
Hmm.
right? So that's one of my little puzzles in my mind of like, how do we help change the way teaching happens at university level so that when a student leaves university, they will say, I have lived in inclusive education. And it doesn't matter whether they are, if they have a diagnosis for anything, but I want my teachers to leave saying, I have lived inclusive education and I now know how to put it into practice because I've lived it.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's
Can you
fun.
do that? Can you just make that happen?
I guess something that could help would be changing also or reorganizing the syllabus. So paying attention to to what we are living, to what we are
Yeah,
going through, what is
yeah,
going on in the world now after the pandemic, because the number of, for example, of autism
right.
boys, children in the world has increased enormously. So this is another point to think about, dear Mary, Rocio, and everyone else. So thank you, Rocio. And now we'll go back to Carol. Hello, Carol. Are you ready?
Yes, I am very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, I'm going to be sharing my screen as well. So thank you very much one more time for the invitation. I hope you can see my screen already. Thank you for the International English Online Meeting. So this is something that started through pandemic, right? This was like a need to meet and get together, correct? All right. So I'm going to be talking about teaching English, well, the book, Teaching English in Global Context as well. I was responsible for one of the chapters with Matthew Vaki. That's why you mentioned him while you were reading my biography. We co-authored the chapter Using Theater to Teach English. This is chapter 28 in that book. And I must say that this, as Cynthia and Rocio were saying, this is a collaboration from all professors, most of the professors from Universidad Instituto Superior de Lenguas in Paraguay and also other universities in the States. So we had the guidance of Susan Spicini, who was our former professor as well, and Valentina Canese, who's joining us also today. She's the director, the current president, PARATESOL president, and she's the director of our university. So thanks to Valentina and to Susan for putting us all together and for encouraging us to write, because through writing, professors make history, right? And as Mary was saying, what can we do at universities so that we can incorporate this thoughts, suggestions, how can we teach at the university in this way so students that are going to be future teachers actually incorporate this way of working, and it's natural for them and it's obvious, right? So anyways, uh, when we talk about theater, teaching English as a second language, right? We talked about this article that is called Moving the Art in You. And so what we thought about this is because we talk and we think and we defend the fact that learning a foreign language can be fun and memorable, and it can be a very fun experience, and it invites you to interact with the real communicative situations. So you have to find communicative situations in every chapter of your book, in every spot of your program, right? So by applying drama techniques in the classroom has demonstrated to be highly effective speaking learning tool for language learners of all ages and all levels. So we're not talking about only young learners, but we're also talking about adolescents, we're talking about adults, we're talking about even university classes, right? So these are important questions that we have to consider: the who, the where, the what, and the whys, right? When we are teaching the English, we need to also incorporate this concept of understanding why these questions are so essential. And so when we talk about using theater, for example, we talk about who are the characters in a little story, for example, in a situation, in a role play. We talk about the where. We need to understand where this happened. What's the setting? In what historical context? We need to understand this. The what represents the action, what happened. Like, so the students can create the situations, they can create stories, they can pretend to do things, and they use objects that are incorporated in this mini situation. The whys represent the reasons why the characters are doing this. So if we incorporate this when we are teaching English, then it makes more sense for them because they're learning a language, but with meaning. It's meaningfully, right? So in this chapter,
Sí, me parece lindo.
I thought that somebody was saying something. So in this chapter, we incorporate a couple of activities and strategies that you can use in your class. One of the strategies would be by working in pairs or in teams. And again, I say act it out. Like if you're reading a little dialogue about food and you're learning, I don't know, is there any, do you have any coffee? Are there any bananas in the fridge? Act it out. Do the role playing. Have them read to each other, but with intention. Just like little things, doing out little things, but not just reading it monotonously, right? Doing role plays in real life situations. And again, I go back to use the textbook. If you have a textbook, find the opportunities so that your class can be a memorable experience. Oh, that class was so much fun. We were just learning about fruits and vegetables, but we ended up doing a little skit about not having enough bananas for a banana cake, right? So incorporating drama through short weekly activities. So if you incorporate this in your syllabus and you say, okay, so every Friday we're gonna have a drama club, or every Thursday in my English class, I'm going to do role plays of this unit that I am covering. So if you incorporate that as an every week activity, then it's going to be more natural for you. Using total physical response by Usher, right? It's one of the most effective things when we're working, even with adults. I mean, we always say, yeah, young learners, but adults need that too. They are sitting 8 hours a day on a chair and then they go to your English class again and then they sit again. Have them stand up, have them do things, right? Move it, act it out. And practicing pronunciation. Of course, young learners enjoy the total physical response much more than adults, but we can combine little movements so that they can remember and they can make sense of this. And the importance of doing theater in class helps with pronunciation and developing fluency because you're having them read dialogues, you're having them explore texts, and so on. So one of the activities that you will see in the chapter that I co-authored with Matthew Vaki are examples on how you can incorporate, for example, at the beginner, intermediate, or at the advanced levels, if you're teaching different levels of proficiency. Starting with something simple from how can you use a chair? So they acted out. They acted out. They use an element. Yeah. So you say how the object is used. You do the action in class. You can sit on it. Yeah. What can you do with that? Can anybody tell me how can you use a chair? Anybody present here in the session? You can open your microphone and you can say, what else can you do with that chair?
Well, you could make a story about a chair. You could have the chair talk about all the people that have been sitting on it and stories about that.
Exactly. That's why I'm projecting from a beginners to a more intermediate level to an advanced level. So simply by using objects at the beginning level and act it out, but you go to intermediate and you find a conflict with that chair, like somebody's using that chair and I.
But did you want something really specific, like you'd sit on the chair, stand on the chair, hold the chair and walk around? Is that what you were thinking of, more specific?
I was inviting people to say, how can you use a chair? But then we go, as you were saying, Mary, you go to more complex levels of proficiency because then you go to advanced levels. For example, you say, how can I do theater? How can I do role play? I mean, they're not going to find it. They want to focus. Yeah. From a simple object as a chair in a beginning level, a conflict in an intermediate, then we find, as Mary was saying, a story with a conflict and a solution based on a space to actually sit. Yeah.
Dear Carol, I just love the level of difficulty. I had never thought about that. How can you use a chair, a conflict with the chair, a story with a conflict and a solution based on a space to sit? Maybe then a chair talking to a table, and maybe and students pretending to be that table and that chair and having this talk. I love this. I love
A
this.
chair in Paraguay talking to a chair in Peru, talking to a chair in
Yes, and a table from Costa Rica.
Imagine a conversation of chairs during war, right? Like at the advanced level, like what kind of conversations can chairs have when the president leaves the session and they're talking to each other? Like, I mean, you can just fly with your imagination, and this is an opportunity for students to speak, to give what they think, to share their suggestions to you. You can open up debates. And so that's why implementing theater, role play, implementing acting out activities, it's so useful. Like, for example, it's always good to have a corner in the class, maybe a coffin or like a box with props, right? What kind of elements can we have in a box in our drama corner? We can have masks. Anybody that wants to collaborate? Maybe they say more elements that you can even have in a box in the corner of your class.
You can have wigs, you can have kitchen instruments, you can have books, you can have sticks, you can have rocks, balls,
Look at all this.
stuffed animals.
So kids can find elements and they can incorporate this in their everyday situation, in a little role play that you want to do, inspired in the English program. So imagine kitchen elements. I didn't think about that when I was creating this presentation, but the more you collaborate, like, and as Rocio was saying, share with colleagues, right? This is about sharing with others. Like, what do you think I could have in my drama corner? Like, do you have any ideas? And so colleagues always have nice ideas, and even students, they can bring one special element from their house and they can have that. And so they collaborate and they contribute with the drama corner. It's not you, the one who has to bring all the elements, but everybody can contribute. Mm-hmm. And in this chapter, you will find, of course, something related to, what do you think?
The environment.
Environment. Very nice. And so that's why I put some elements and like thinking about, okay, what is your opinion about using water bottles? And so you can have discussions about this. What is your opinion about the lids that are left over? What do you do with the lids? Do you donate the lids? What do you do? You can have a whole lesson about lids, only plastic bottle lids, right? What about straws? There is a big discussion in the world about straws nowadays. Many bars in Asunción, we don't have any plastic straws anymore. We use paper straws. Some of them are, some people are buying metal straws. And so we have like, if you go to a party nowadays and the person who is hosting the event, if that person is more conscious, you will see that the person puts the name, like a label, like a name tag. And so you write your name and you keep your straw all the party instead of just throwing plastic cups and plastic straws in the trash can. So anyways, this chapter invites you to read a short play that we created for young learners, for, I would say, an A2 level of proficiency, because this is the big question, right? About what happens if we litter. What happens? What happens in Peru in terms of, or Costa Rica? Do you have any issues with littering? Do you have any issues with people being irresponsible and throwing garbage to the rivers? Or here in Paraguay, when it rains, people just throw their garbage in the street, and the water takes the trash to the river. It's very irresponsible. And so this is what happens with our environment.
But I think you can ask a question: what happens to the life in the sea or in the water? The fish. Yeah.
Yeah, what happens exactly what happens with the fish, what
Great
happens
idea.
with the habitat. I mean, it's not only your eyes that are, you're you're very discouraged about. No, it's
What
many
and
animals.
and what about having a conversation, fish from Peru, from Paraguay, from Canada, and talking about the kind of litter they have to struggle with?
Exactly. Imagine
Right.
having big issues from throwing a plastic bottle on the floor from a very beginner's level and then taking it more complex to different levels of proficiency. So if
Mhm.
we're working at this level. And so this chapter 28, talks about actually our situations with birds in the river, because we don't have a sea, but we have a river. We have two rivers, right? And so we have to be very careful with what happens with the community of birds. Yeah, as Rahil was saying, like what happens with the animals that live in the area, right? So we took a chance to talk about the tero, which is one of the this is one of the very traditional birds here in Paraguay. I looked for other terms, like more scientific terms. It's a lapwing or a chevron. Do you have any of these birds in Peru, in Costa Rica?
I I don't think so.
Okay, he's very
Eh,
protected.
yeah.
And then we have other characters in the play that we created, the El Dorado. So it's a very well-known fish here in Paraguay, El Dorado. It's a golden fish. So I was just looking for options on eventually when you want to recreate this play, you can have your kids pretend to be that character. Yeah. So you can play with costumes. I mean, you don't have scales here in this little kiddo, but he has a cape. He has maybe gloves that are of the color of a golden fish. Look at this beautiful cape of this princess that is pretending to be a blue guacamayo, right? Or a capybara. Everybody loves the capybaras. Everybody
Okay.
loves the capybaras. The capybaras are so friendly. All the animals, they get along with capybaras very well, and they're not harmful, and they're so sweet. And so there's whole stories about capybaras and our jaguar. Look at this little kiddo that is pretending to be. So, and the little boy. So these are characters that appear in the play that you will have access to read, because it talks about a situation of a little boy who is a fish boy, like he's a fishing boy, and he's trying to solve a problem of one of the teroteros because of the littering, because of the trash can. So you have the whole play at your disposal in the chapter. And I actually want to invite you to open your microphones, because at the end of the little play that lasts about 10 minutes, it's a short play that we also shared with you there. There is a song. And some people might say, but I don't know how to sing. I don't know how to play the guitar. No, what you can use is public domain melodies. In this case, it would be the tune of London Bridge. So we thought about creating the lyrics and adapting this to this song, the melody of London Bridge. And so I would like to invite you all to open your microphones and sing this song with me. The name of the song is Working Together We Can Make a Better World. And so what I am going to do is we're going to read the lyrics as we sing the song. Are you ready?
I'll sing with you.
So you thank you. There you go. 3, 2, 1. Let's do it. We can
We
make
can
a
make a better world,
better
world,
world.
better world. We
We
can
can make a
better
better world.
all
Better.
together.
together.
Trash,
Put the trash
Trash
inside the
bag,
inside
Inside
the
the
bag,
back, inside
inside
the
inside
back.
the
put the batch inside the bag. Please don't litter.
Very
bag.
nice.
Rivers need
Rivers
your love,
for love, need
need
your
your
love,
love.
need your
Need
love.
your love.
Rivers need your love, please.
Rivers need your love. Please don't
Better,
litter. We can make
Make
a
a
better
better world, better world.
world,
world, better
world. We can make a better world all
Oh,
together.
excellent. Very nice. So this is what we shared in the chapter, and of course you have further reference. You have more pages that we used as reference to write the chapter. So I would really like to invite you to visit these chapters, because each one of the chapters are inviting to a different scenario, different world, different strategies, different areas. And so this is it. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, thank you, dear Carol. It's been very insightful and very productive to learn about using theater in our classes. I don't know if anybody, by the way, let me introduce the president of our association. There was a blackout in her country or her city. That's why she connected late. Hello, dear Raj, and thank you for being here.
Yes, good morning from Canada. Lights are on again after 12 hours.
Thank
A tree
you.
fell
Thank you,
across
dear
the road.
Raj.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the power
Anybody
pole
else
fell
has
across.
any comment or question about Carol's presentation?
I just joined and I enjoyed it so much is because it shows consideration for all forms of life.
Right. Right.
That's what I caught. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hope you can read the chapter. So
Yeah, we will. I've already downloaded the book, so I will read it. Thank you, and thank you so much. And I will share it with my colleagues. Now it's time for Maura. Are you there, Maura?
Yes, I'm
Hey,
here.
welcome, dear Maura. Welcome, and the screen is all yours.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I had to apologize. Like similar to Rocio, I have a voice problem today. So, my topic is about empowering adults for autonomous learning. So I want to tell you a little bit about this. When I was a student, I mean, even now, I am a person that is persistent with their goals. Like I set a goal and then I don't stop until I finish it. So I became a teacher and I thought that all adults were like that, you know. And then I found out that it was not the case. And if you're working in a school, you have this kind of a structure that helps you with discipline and to reinforce what they have to do. But when you're working with adults, if they don't like the class, if they are not motivated, they just drop out. So that's why I started to think of like, what can I do as a teacher in order to help my students keep their motivation and like keep learning and start like thinking of why are they actually learning English. So when you talk about becoming autonomous learner, it means that you have the ability to take control over your own learning. And different studies have shown that this learning autonomy is actually related to academic success. So the more autonomous you are, the more successful you'll be with whatever you are, your goal is. So this is especially relevant with adults because we as adults have many responsibilities. So we have to find a way to do things in order to learn the language and also balance our personal lives with our occupations and family and other things that we go through. So as educators, we have this role to guide our students to become more independent and autonomous. However, language autonomy is not an innate ability. It's not something that you are born with. So we need to help them and understand this. We are not just delivering content. We also have to teach them how to study, for example, or we have to teach them what they can do in order to organize their time better, or how to finish their homework, or what else they can do in order to improve their language skills. So teachers, of course, they play a key role in fostering autonomy in adults. So nowadays, fortunately, EFA curricula have become more student-centered. So we want our students to be the more active participants, and we want our classes to be student-centered. But the thing is that sometimes our students were not actually taught in that scenario. So it's something that they probably don't know, or they expect the teacher to be the one that transmits knowledge, and they expect the teacher to be the one that does all the job, and they don't have to do anything. So that's when we come as teachers, and we kind of have to learn how to teach this skill as well. And we have some, it can be challenging because we have limited study time. They have this fluctuating motivation. Everyone starts an English course, and then when the months pass, and then they kind of drop out, and they are not motivated anymore. They are not excited as the first month or the first class. So everyone begins with enthusiasm, but motivation often declines over time. And of course, we have these multiple roles of adult learners, as I mentioned before. So we are professionals, and we are parents or caregivers, and we have to compete. Like, language learning is something that we have to do, and we also have to do other things. So it's kind of a competition among all our roles as adults. And we have some factors that shape autonomous learning. So we have some teachers factors, institutional factors, and learners factors. So some teachers factors are related to the way we are as teachers. If we, for example, believe that this is an important skill, then our students are probably going to acquire this skill. So if we as teachers are not autonomy ourselves, then we are going to struggle to encourage our students. It's like, if I don't believe in this, I'm not going to promote this in my class.
That's true.
And also, we have some misconceptions about autonomy. Some teachers might think that this is not necessary. I mean, like, they should do what they have to do, and I don't have to teach them to do some learning. I mean, they should know how to study, for example. So they just think that they don't need to teach this. And another important thing is that some teachers believe that if I do something that is not part of the curriculum, then that is not something that I should be doing in class. And we also need to talk about our roles as teachers. So we are more like facilitators and like assessors. I mean, we have to explain that to our students, because as I said before, some adult students were not actually taught in the way we are teaching now. I mean, in the past, classes were teacher-centered, and they were like passive students. They were not active participants, and they didn't participate in their learning process. And some students, they haven't been in a classroom, like any kind of classroom, for years, and now they go into the English classroom, and then the teacher expects them to participate and to be active, and that can create some kind of anxiety if they don't know what is expected from them. So we as teachers need some training in order to guide this and to help them with probably some tips about how to set their goals and how to reflect on their learning process. And then we have some institutional factors as well that, of course, we all have teaching loads, like administrative duties, and then testing requirements, and then you have to finish the content because they have a test, and then you have to finish everything because you have to finish what you have to do in your class. So there is a gap between what is your autonomy practices and what is actually achievable in your class because of the limited time, especially, and all your administrative duties. Also, we have policymakers, because these decisions, they can enable or restrict these opportunities for adult learners to develop autonomy. And the good thing is that many of the activities that we can do to promote autonomy can be implemented outside class time. So it's not that you are going to use all your class hour to teach them how to organize or to set goals, for example. So, and it takes some time because at the beginning, your students might not be familiar with this and like it might be new, but it is worth it. Like this effort pays off through the improved language learning outcomes, and this has been proven by research. It's not, I mean, there is a correlation between autonomy and academic success. And of course, we have the learners factors that we have already mentioned, like the attitudes they have toward learning and also their obligations. And an important thing here is that persistence is usually linked to anticipation of future rewards. It's not related to choosing learning over other activities. So we have to remind our students why they are learning English, because they have to think of that future reward that they will have. So we have some teaching suggestions here in order to facilitate this. So we have, for example, facilitating the learning environment. So the teacher is the one that creates the environment or the learning environment. So we cannot just step back and expect our students to work independently without any guidance, because they might not know how to work by themselves. And from the very first day, I would say that motivation is very important. And we have to share with them our expectations and also make sure that they understand what we expect from them. Sometimes when we teach beginners, we might need to use the first language, especially not to teach, but to explain the goals, for example. Like, this is the way we are going to do the class. You have to participate, you have to be active, or you are expected to do this. And we make sure that they understand. That's why I put here that sometimes it's necessary to use first language, especially to set expectations. And learners contribute by setting achievable goals. So this is like a co-creation. So we set goals with students, and we also teach them that we share responsibility. It's not our responsibility only that they learn, it's a shared responsibility. So it is a process. So we start by setting goals with them, and then we teach them how they are going to achieve their goals, and then we teach them what is my role and what is their goal. When you set goals with your students, sometimes is, I would say like 3 actions, for example, that you are going to do to achieve your goal. And it's very, it is useful when you have a calendar or you have like a track progress, so then they can visualize their achievements. Otherwise, they don't realize how far they have gone, like all what they have learned. And motivation grows when they see their progress. So you need some positive reinforcement. So for example, when you have beginner students, you can celebrate like from 0 English, like, or few words in English, to short conversation. So you tell them, oh, now you are able to introduce yourself in English. So that you can, in a progress, let's say chart, you put them, okay, you were here 0, and now you can introduce yourself in English. You can probably talk about your hobbies. You can ask for food in a restaurant. So those steps are meaningful for our students. And if you work with intermediate students, of course, you go to meaningful discussions. So now you're able to talk about this topic, like Carol was presenting, for example, intermediate students, they can talk about the environment. So then you tell them that, okay, now you are able to do this. And another thing that I found really interesting is the reflection. So when they reflect on their learning progress, and they feel they can see what they have achieved. So this is related to journals. So they work with journals, for example, they summarize, they have questions. You can work with articles, for example, that are that your students are, like, different topics your students are interested in. So then they, for example, summarize the article, and then they create some questions about that article. And they, for example, there are some words that they didn't understand and what they did in order to understand those words. And you can give them feedback on these journals. So these journals, they write, for example, something, and then you can give them feedback related to grammar or some recommendations, for example. These journals should be used like formative assessments. So the focus is on reflection rather than correction. So you want them to think about their learning process. And promoting persistence, of course. So I put here, like, don't give up. So we have to remind our students of the reasons for learning English. So when, as Cynthia was mentioning, there is a reason why you are here. And then we have to remind them of the reasons why they are learning English and what is the dream they want to achieve with learning English. Another important thing is that we have nowadays all digital tools. So you can look through apps or videos or platforms, for example, and then show them what they can do and practice with them even in class, and then show them what they can do outside the classroom, for example. And we have to maintain interest. We maximize time on topics of greatest student interest. We encourage, for example, e-portfolios. We show that we care about their process, and sometimes this makes a difference. I mean, if you have sometimes they remember that they had a teacher that was nice to them and that they talk about this topic, and like the teacher showed them their progress, for example. We also, when we work with conversations, we try to work with conversations that are not actually related to the class, but related to, for example, what they are doing, what if they are professionals in their daily lives, occupations, or their hobbies, for example, if they went to a concert. So things like that. So they have meaningful conversations. You do not just follow the book. So you do something else, so they see that they are improving and that they can do other things with English. And teacher presence and encouragement actually strengthen autonomy. So for call to action, I also say that you should share experiences and strategies with your colleagues, because in different groups you have different outcomes. So your colleague might know, or they might have an experience that is helpful. You experiment with autonomy, building activities in your own classroom, and then you see what works and what doesn't work. And encourage adult learners to take ownership of their progress. And an important thing, I believe, is technology nowadays. So this is a bridge between classroom learning and real world practice. So you can assign some activities on platforms and you show them how to use platforms, because some adults might not be familiar with platforms or digital apps. So you take some time in your class to teach them how to use certain apps that you consider are going to be useful for them. As a final reflection, I have this question, like, you think back to when you were learning English or another language or something, and what activities helped you to develop autonomous learning skills? So what was useful for you? You might try it out in your classroom, or how can technology support language class activities? So you check on apps or videos, as I mentioned.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
dear.
you.
Thank you, dear Maura. And answering that question, well, I'm 62. So when I when I started studying English, I was 17, 18, and we didn't have any technology at all, any technological tools at all. So our learning was based on communication, on developing strategies to communicate, motivation, lowering the affective filter, and things that are very important now, because due to the overuse of technological tools, we are neglecting the development of our human interaction. I don't know if anybody else has any different answer for your question here in the audience, or a comment about this presentation.
Jaime, I think you make a good point in how much we are now dependent on technology, emojis, little little phrases, we're not actually fully using the language sometimes because that's how the technology works.
Yeah.
Any good points?
Which doesn't mean that technology is bad, but the overuse of the that students depend on that too much.
We need both, an opportunity to do both. Yeah.
Right, right. Okay,
And we also have to teach them how to use technology.
right.
Yeah.
And we also have to learn.
Question. Yeah.
Wanting or not wanting, we need to learn, right? Okay, and now we have well, okay, we have already listened to Cynthia, Rocio, Carol, and Maura, and now it's time for you, dear Remigio. You are the last one, but not the least important. So go on with your
Okay.
presentation, and thank you so much once again.
Okay, thank you. I'll start sharing my screen. Good afternoon. I'm going to talk about teaching English in different contexts. This is also a chapter from the book that my colleagues have already been presented. And I will start talking about this context, some of the contexts in which English is taught, okay? In a little bit about the background in this one. English is the most widely used language worldwide, okay? If we consider nowadays the number of native speakers compared with the number of people who are non-native speakers, we will see that non-native speakers surpasses the number of native speakers nowadays. Why is this important? Because we will see that English has become a global language, and this global language is being taught into different contexts, okay? According to Alliance, the most commonly studied foreign language in the world. And what is one of the first contexts that we're going to present? The K-12 schools. So schools are usually organized by grade levels, such as pre-kindergarten, primary, elementary, middle, and high. An important element to consider here is that these schools can be public or private. And this is crucial when it comes to learn English because of the number of hours that are devoted in public schools or in private institutions. Another context is the bilingual immersion, okay? The purpose in this context is for students to acquire the target language while learning curricular content through both the target language and home language, okay? So this type of schools, especially here in our context in Paraguay, are in the private sector, okay? We do not have here bilingual schools that teach English or that teach English not just as teaching English as a language, but to use English to teach content like, for example, chemistry, mathematics, or any other subject. We don't have that in the public sector. But this is devoted into the private sector, and usually these schools have one characteristic, that is that they are expensive. Another context in which we can learn English is a language institute, okay? In this context, the classes are offered for children, for adolescents and adults, with materials and methods that are tailored for each group, language level, as well as for a specific learning goal, okay? Here in Paraguay, there are institutions, there are institutes that are renowned, that have been teaching English, one of them for more than 70 years, another for more than 40 years. They are usually the places where people who, after finishing high school, some of the cases, go to those, enroll in those courses, attend classes, and learn English in that way. Okay? That is, people who do not have enough hours in their schools, because public institutions, for example, you only have 3 hours a week in high school. Okay, so you are not going to achieve the level of proficiency, a C1 level, for example, if you just attend a public school here. Probably you will reach an A2 level, but that is not, let's say, that is not enough if you are planning to apply for a scholarship, for example, once you finish high school or once you finish your first degree, for example, at the university level. Another place in which English is taught here in Paraguay and in other regions around the world is in institution of higher education, okay? And this context includes post-secondary colleges and universities that provide English language instruction for their undergraduate and graduate program. In some faculties here in Paraguay, you have English, but the approach is different. It's English for specific purposes. Depending on the major you have chosen, English is present, but the approach is different. So it's not general English. Usually it's connected with the major you have chosen. There are also companies that hire English teachers, but the setting is different. So companies usually contract a language institute or hiring individual teachers to provide English lessons during a schedule that matches employees' availabilities. Of course, this kind of context is kind of an investment that the company does with their employees. So they want them to stay there to learn English so they can be fluent in that language according to the necessities, according to the needs of a particular company. In another setting in which English is taught is this one, so the hospital schools, okay? Here, the programmatic content is provided to children who must be hospitalized for long periods of time. So the curricular content is taught with necessary adjustment for the hospital content. I will share an experience that we have here in one institution that I am a professor, and we part of the 4 years of the major in education and English is to practice, to do the practical in different levels, different settings. Okay, and one of those settings is this one. Okay, a part of public institutions, a part of public schools, and our students go to these hospital schools. There is one that we have here in Paraguay in which they get in contact with children who learn content, and English is included as part of the program. Okay? Unfortunately, not all of the time they have English teachers to teach under these special conditions, but this is an interesting and I would say a challenging setting for our students. Another experience constitute what we call the schools in indigenous communities. Okay, and there is a school here in Paraguay in the Chaco region, and that is called Yalbesanga, in which there are different indigenous languages that are spoken there and that are also being taught, like the Nivaclet and the Letra Yoreo, that's an Apana, and the Lengua Dangaite and the Guarani Tendeva, the Shir, which are indigenous communities that they have a setting, a multicultural setting, and they have an English teacher that teaches English to them. And of course, they speak English depending on the level of proficiency. Usually, what they reach is an intermediate level. Okay, and they use English. They use English for their interactions in the English hours. But they are different. They are different English communities. They are not, or they are different indigenous communities. They are not just people who speak Guarani. As you can see, there are many indigenous communities there. Another challenging setting, I would say, is the incarcerated instruction. So the incarcerated instruction of English occurs in a context where students are deprived of their liberty, okay? And the students might have different home languages and culture, okay? But we had experiences here in which teachers went to these institutions, and they gave classes in English to a group of students that were incarcerated. Okay? So, but again, we do not have enough teachers to teach English, because usually these are activities that are not paid. So you are going to do that as to help the community to help these people to have the, let's say, instruction in one language, and eventually once they leave jail, they can also have more opportunities, more chances to get into society again. And another element that we need to bear in mind here is the class size. Okay, so in ELT context, is the class size refers to the number of students in class. And the concept of what is a small class and a large class may be different depending on the context, depending on the country we are living. Okay, here in Paraguay, for example, if you consider a public institution, some schools had more than 40, 50, or even 60 students in one classroom for just one teacher. Okay, and of course there are private institutions in which you have 20, 25, or 30 students, or sometimes you have other institutions in which you have 10 to 15 students. So depending on the class size, okay, we can talk about having a class that is large or that is small. But usually in the public sector, we had a lot of students, and we had a few hours to teach English. In another setting is the multicultural classroom, okay? Students from several or different home languages and cultures, okay? And it is a different type of context for teaching and learning English, okay? People from different languages interact in English. And here, there's also a challenge. So, because we want them to talk in English, and they speak different languages, okay? And sometimes the teacher or the professor is not proficient in all of the languages that are present in the classroom. And that represents a challenge for the professor and for the teacher, okay? So we should have a more universal vision of what type of content is to be delivered and how the activities need to be implemented. And here it is important to emphasize that grammar is important, the grammatical aspect of the language is important, but the culture is also important. So when we teach, we must teach the grammatical aspect, but we also need to teach the culture of the language. So without the cultural elements, probably we are just teaching one half of the part of the English that our students need for a real interaction, for a real communicative purpose that they may have in the English language. We usually make that comparison, okay, so that I can use English words, but if I don't speak the culture, probably misunderstanding might happen. Yes, face-to-face classes, the question, so virtual classes versus face-to-face classes, okay? So learners often engage more easily in activities, some learners, especially when these are implemented with a communicative purpose. Some students prefer face-to-face classes because they want to see the person, they want to see the teacher, the professor, they want to see their classmate, they want to interact. That human aspect, the present, to see how the teacher or the professors look like, right? Or how my classmates look like. And apart from that, people feel, let's say, much more comfortable in this kind of environment. But we cannot deny the importance of online teaching or virtual classes nowadays, okay? This context of virtual instruction can offer many advantages for teachers and students, given that the materials and assignments are posted on virtual platforms and the session are recorded. So we have access to many resources, many tools nowadays on internet for free. And that represents a plus for many students that in previous year, they cannot afford a book because usually in our context, you're going to buy a book, the book is expensive. Not every student can afford buying a good course book. And with these virtual classes and with these tools that the online classes offer, we are reaching, let's say, a bigger population of students in which they can learn English. So, this is my email, my phone number if you want to ask me more questions about this. But to sum up, these are some of the contexts in which English can be taught, okay? And to identify the context in which I'm going to teach English is essential in order to choose the right tools, the right approaches that might lead to what we want, which is learning the language, right? So basically, these are some of the contexts that I wanted to share with you, and I open to hear your questions.
Yeah,
Thank you
number
very
one.
much.
Yeah, number one, thanks a lot, dear Remigio. Very interesting, all the overall view of the different ways of teaching in different contexts. The one that attracted most my attention was that I had never thought about is teaching English in hospitals.
Exactly.
That must be awesome. I'm sure that would help people to recover faster and feel
Exactly.
feel that they are not that much sick. Don't you think
No,
so?
they follow the same content, the same curricula that you should have, of course, with the necessary adjustment according to their let's say to their schedule that they follow. Okay, they
Yeah.
do have a classroom. They had a classroom, and let's say, and the classroom is, let's say, beautiful in terms of helping them to recover from their illnesses or from
Definitely.
they having. Okay, so the
Have you
idea is that the idea is not to exclude them from the system
right?
and not to be feel excluded from the system.
Have you ever had the chance of working in teaching English at a hospital?
I haven't taught at the hospital, but my former students are teaching there, are teaching English, but they also had other teachers that help them with the other subjects, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
it is the same. It is the same content. It's not, but the necessary, let's say, adaptations, but they follow the same content. So once that they're recovered, they can go again to their school. So that's the idea.
Yeah, here Mercilinda from Guatemala, she wrote, I have a friend who teaches English at jail as part of his inclusive teaching project. Wow, that must be awesome. Thank you, dear Mercilinda in Guatemala.
In
Well,
Paraguay, we had a specific building from the jail. So everyone who wants to get inserted into society sign, let's say, a letter of compromise. So they move there and they receive instruction let's say, in vocational jobs, and besides that, they can also choose to learn English, for example, as part of the process of, let's say, once they go to society again, so they can, let's say, expand their horizons, and let's see if they can find a job, for example, right?
Yeah. Well, before the final words and final comments, let me thank Cynthia, Rocio, Carol, Maura, and you, Remigio, for such interesting topics. Like the first one, Cynthia talked about engage, study, activate with adult learners. Then Rocio, she talked about incorporating inclusive education practices in ELT. Carol Ortiz, she talked about using theater to teach English. Maura, just a few minutes ago, she talked about empowering adults for autonomous learning. And you, dear Remigio, you talked about teaching English in different contexts. Well, on behalf of the audience present here and the people, more than 400 people following us on Facebook Live, let me thank you for such insightful and meaningful presentations. I don't know if anybody here, like Valentina, Carla, Claudia, Alejandra, Liz, or Raj, want to say something. Well, Mary wrote, thank you all so much. I need to get on the road to family celebration today. Thank you for these interesting sessions and offering. Thank you, Paratisol, for sharing with our community. Okay, yeah, go on, dear Valentina. Valentina Canese, open up your microphone.
Hello,
Hello, dear
can you hear
Valentina.
me? Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Very well.
Yeah, I just want to thank my dear colleagues from PARATESOL for accepting and participating in this after we received this invitation from Grazzia. So thank you for inviting us, and thank you everyone for sharing your insights here. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, dear Valentina. I will be uploading this official video in our YouTube channel because I guess we need to watch it again and listen to you again and read the book and learn something else. I don't know if anybody else wants to express his or her gratitude or make
I
any
would
comment.
I would like to say a couple of words. I would like to thank Valentina and Susan Spesini for putting us together and trusting that we had potential to write a chapter in the book. So it was very interesting because we're discovering potentials that we have, and thank you to each one of my peers in Paratiso. We do this together, and we continue growing. Thank you so much.
No,
Thank you for
thank
your.
you because the work you have done in that book, it's marvelous. Thank you, Carol. And maybe the president of our association, Raj Gill, in Canada, wants to say something before you, each one of you, say your final words in this presentation today. Go on, dear Raj.
Thank you, Jaime. I'm sorry I was late because of what happened, but I'm fascinated by what I've heard, the diversity of the content, and also really important parts that were mentioned was when we are comfortable and the learning happens. Like if a patient comes into the hospital and they're not understanding the person, it is very uncomfortable. They're sick, now they're not being understood. The same with
Right.
prisons and institutions. Right? So even in the classroom, we want to make sure our student is comfortable and how to help them become familiar with the new concepts. Thank you all.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
dear Raj. And something else that all the presentations are connected, have to do with human connections, human feelings, human emotions, everything that has to do with human. And I love that. I just love all the presentations. So now, dear Cynthia, you are the first one to say goodbye and express your gratitude to this audience in the five continents and maybe outer space.
Thank you very much, Jaime, and the whole community for allowing us to share a little bit of what we did, and also for sharing for everyone else that has shared before us, because I saw that many people that I know have also offered webinars in this space. So thank you so much for this, and it was my pleasure.
Thank you, dear Cynthia. And let me tell you that the topics that you presented today, all of you, are new, have been presented in a different way, and that's what we respect and value. Okay, thank you, thank you. Now, Rocio.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me here and for the people that invited me. And I hope I ignited some curiosity and you're going to find out more about the topic I presented and all the topics that you had today.
Thank you, Rocio, for the big effort you've done because of your flu and your throat problems. Thank you so much. Carol?
Yes. Well, thank you one more time. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for creating 139 sessions already. So imagine, it's a lot. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
thank God, Carol, and thank people like you, because without your participation, without your expertise, without your attitude, your motivation, your passion, it wouldn't have been possible, right, Raj?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Maura.
Thank you for this opportunity and also for your time and attention. And I hope that the ideas we explore together with my colleagues inspire you or all teachers to keep growing as professionals.
Yeah, thank you, Maura. And I promise I will upload this video in different TESOLs around South America. I will share it with people from other countries, and they will be delighted to see this video and read the book because I have already downloaded it. Well, and finally, Remigio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the warm welcome. And we would like to see the feedback from our book. So thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Remigio, and it's been a pleasure for me and for all the people who have been listening to you and watching you. Before leaving this wonderful session, just a reminder. Remember, December the 7th is our next session with ASOCOPY teachers, Kathy, Adriana, and Claudia. And the last one, beautiful moment before Christmas and New Year with Gracia, Isabel, Raj, Rana, and Mary Scholl. So, time to say goodbye. Thank you so much. And bon appetit in Paraguay. It's only 11:29 here in Peru. Canada, what time is it?
8:30.
Oh, early in the morning. Well,
Morning cup of tea.
thank you, everyone, and see you in December. Bye bye. Thank you,
Thank
Paratiso.
you.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you
Enjoy
so
Sunday.
much.
Goodbye, goodbye,
Bye-bye.
goodbye, goodbye.